what is your ideal blueprint for your Chicago Bears offseason?
Trade back as many times as possible. I mean, it's realistic where the Bears could end up with a top 10 pick and another 3 to 4 first rounders on top of what they currently have. Yep, I see you pointing to the Panthers, but I think
That's
what they
right.
should do is trade back to number two first. Get on the
Yep.
phone with the Texans and say, "Hey, you guys obviously wanted this number one pick. How about you jump ahead of us, and then you can get your guy at number one." That right there, boom, you still got a number two overall pick, and you probably acquire a future first on top of that. Then you call up the Panthers, Seahawks, the Raiders, all of these teams that are in QB limbo right now, and see who's going to pony up the most to move up to number two. So then let's say you can move back to, 6, 7, 8 or something like that. You can still potentially move back again and acquire more. So I think that when they have the number one overall pick and they don't have a need for a quarterback, that's not something that you see a lot of teams in that position very often. They're in a very unique situation. Now, what I will say is based off of some of the trades that we've seen from Ryan Poles, Roquan Smith and Chase Claypool, like we talked earlier. I don't have a ton of faith in him as a negotiator, but hopefully he could just stick to his trade value chart and he knows exactly what every single trade is valued at, and he doesn't get bent over too hard here as we approach the NFL draft. But ideally, that's what I'd like to see is them trade back from that number one pick and acquire as much draft capital as possible. But what we've also seen in the last couple of years are in these draft day trades. We see players like Stephon Diggs get traded to Buffalo. We see players like AJ Brown get traded to Philadelphia. And coincidentally, we saw Josh Allen take a huge step forward that year. We saw Jalen Hurts take a huge step forward this year. So with a lot of these teams that have these really young and talented wide receivers, just trying to see the theme that I saw with Stephon Diggs and AJ Brown. These guys were coming to the end of their rookie contracts and teams wanted to move up. So trying to identify some other guys that are in similar positions: T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk. There's a lot of really talented guys that might not look available right now, but could be available come draft day. So I'm hoping that the Bears can do the right thing and bring in a true wide receiver one for Justin Fields to help them take that step forward next year.
I like that. And like you were mentioning about Ryan Poles, for all of the chaos and mayhem that the Panthers have brought upon themselves for the last couple of years, Scott Fitterer wheels and deals. So I'm sincerely hoping that he does at least make a strong attempt to getting that 101. Because I mean, like you were saying, all those other teams that are, the Colts, all those guys that there's a lot of teams in the top 10 that are already in the top 10 and they can hope that someone's going to fall, but someone's going to overpay for that 101 or one of those, top three picks just because they can't wait. They can't have a Sam Darnold. They can't have, as much as I do still like him, Davis Mills. There's a lot of these, it's just not going to happen. So, I mean, there's, a couple of quarterbacks, some that are supposedly, studs, blue chip guys, other guys that are maybe more questionable and maybe just only us in the fantasy community like them for the rushing upside. Richardson. But, very excited to see what happens there. And I know the offseason is really just getting started. So I think from a content space too, I think everyone in the industry will have a lot of interesting things to talk about, especially with the Senior Bowl. I think a week, 2 weeks away.
Yeah, I believe it's the week before this. Yeah, so it'll be the week after the conference games, right? So
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think the best thing though for the Bears would be if Levis can start to see his value rise a little bit. Because right now we're hearing about Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, but if all of a sudden he starts getting into that, talking consideration as being a top quarterback as well, then the Bears have even more opportunities to move back. So I think they're doing the right thing now by holding off, because had they made an immediate trade, right after Houston won that game, they probably wouldn't have gotten much value. So I think that as they get closer and closer to the draft, those picks are only going to become more alluring. So I think they're doing the right thing by holding off.
And that's as long as someone nudges Ryan Poles and says, no, don't say we're happy with Justin Fields. We're uncertain. We don't know, right? Nudge them. And then like, all right, yeah, we're trading. We're good with Justin Fields. That's fine.
Exactly. Yep.